All right, everybody, we're back with the Packard Bell Legend 610. We're going to go ahead and disassemble this down to get it nice and cleaned up. We've got our usual suspects for cleaning, some shop towels, a duster. I've got a little toothbrush, and I've got some Windex hiding out in the back here. So let's take her apart, get the whole case and all of the accessories and components cleaned up, and see if we can get this one firing up with the power button properly and see what this system can do. All right, so we're going to start by taking out the standard floppy drive here. This one's just held in place by 4 screws and just sort of slides in and out. We've got the power connector and the IDE cable, and this should slip right on out and give us better access to our larger floppy and CD-ROM drive. And then we should be able to access this arm for the power supply. All right, and our floppy drive here is a Panasonic Model JU257134P. I've honestly never seen a Panasonic floppy drive before. They're probably quite common back in the day, but look at this PCB. Super clean. Really, really impressive shell. It's dusty a little bit on the outside, but all things considered, like no corrosion, no, nasty signs of wear. So it leads me to believe that this system here, although used, was probably relatively gently used. So that's kind of nice to see. Probably will mean we're not going to run into a ton of issues, or maybe that's just wishful thinking. One little issue I have with this case is the way these bottom screws are mounted. They slip out and then roll underneath, so one of them I'll have to fish out here or turn it on its side to get. But aside from that, real easy removal. It looks like this just clips into place, so I should be able to just slide this portion out to free this up and get a nice clean on this, so we can get this whole case wiped down and cleaned out and give it a really, really thorough cleaning. Okay, so we've got the standard size floppy out. We took out the bracket to access the screws. These are screwed in on both sides, so to access that, we'll have to take out the hard drive, which is actually held in place here with a screw in the front, just like this bracket was. So this is kind of a neat design. I kind of wish they had this on some more modern towers, because I love the idea of having optical drives vertical as opposed to horizontal. Now, obviously with CDs, it's a little more challenging. You could do it, or I should say discs of any kind, Blu-ray, etc. I just really enjoy it. So it's really something I just wanted to point out. I still love the hard drive, turbo LEDs, all that stuff, just very nostalgic for me. And I know obviously this is a nostalgia trip, or if you're really out here just trying to learn about these types of machines, just a very interesting build. But just wanted to point that out. Let's go ahead and pull the hard drive, pull the optical drive and the floppy drive out, and then take a look at what we've got inside. And if this is any indication, I have a feeling it's mostly storage dust and other material. Okay, so we got the hard disk out. This again is an old Seagate ST3120A. You really want to be careful with these older disk drives. While they're hardier than they look, the more delicate you can be with them, typically the better. With this one, I'm going to leave the bracket on just because there's really just a very light wipe down needed here. It doesn't need heavy cleaning of any kind. But I would like to look up the specs on this, just get the age and stuff. So if anybody knows, feel free to drop it in the comments, but it'll be later in the video too, as I get that information, or it may be in a future video where we actually get this one back together and fire it up. Haven't decided yet, stay tuned. And our large floppy here is again a Panasonic, so we've got matching components, so I'm assuming these are both original to the build of this machine. This is a JU4754AKJ. This back sticker is actually hand stamped with these numbers, so that's pretty cool. Pretty dirty. You'll find notable, of course, everything on here is exposed, so this is not as clean, obviously, as our standard floppy, which we all know and love for those of us who grew up with the 3 1/4 inch floppies. The good news is I don't really see any bulging caps or anything on it. I'm going to guess it probably needs lubrication. I'm going to clean it up as best as possible, but being that I'm honestly probably not going to be using this drive, at least for the time being, I don't want to dink around with it too much at the risk of course, damaging it. I'm going to guess the slide probably needs relubrication or something, but we can always tackle that in the future if I get any floppies to use with the system. Other than that, a great curiosity. It appears to be in working order as far as I can tell, so that is good. But definitely in the future, if I ever need to use this, I would probably look into fully servicing it ahead of time just to make sure that this is in good shape. All right, here's our CD drive. This one is a model Maverick 8622 IDE, manufactured in November of 96. So this is definitely a later addition to the system, which I think was kind of apparent. It's a 12X CD-ROM drive, which would not, I don't think, have come standard on this particular series, but I don't really know the manufacturer of this. I can't tell if this is an Asta. That would be something I've never heard of, but it's definitely not matching to the other Panasonic material here, but we know it's totally working, and that's really all that matters. I have to point out, I love these old controls with the headphone jack on the front and the manual volume knobs. Very nostalgic for me. When I was a kid, I was fascinated by this. And I was also tickled that you could hit the play button to play like a music CD, and you could listen with headphones while you were playing like Doom on the computer or something. So I don't know if you out there did that as a kid like I did. Maybe you had a stereo in the room or something and didn't have to do that, but I always thought that was just the coolest thing. I could take my Walkman headphones. Well, I didn't have a Walkman, I had a JVC, but I would plug it into the CD-ROM drive, and I just remember having a great time listening to music while I was playing computer games back in the day. All right, so now with a better view of the board here, we see we've got an Oak Technology OTIVGA sticker here, which kind of indicates to me that maybe this has an onboard display that is an Oak Technology display, which is interesting because the Pentium Pro system, if you've been following those videos, also has an Oak Technologies VGA display. So I'm wondering if they're close to on par with each other in terms of capability. But as you can see, the level of dust over here very much matches the level of dust over there. The good news is now that I have a better view of the rest of this board, it looks like the caps and everything on here are in pretty nice shape. I can't wait to drill down to this battery to make sure that looks good, but again, no corrosion that I can see immediately. So far, so good. So an interesting little history lesson for those of you out there who didn't grow up in this era. The sound card here has actually one of our IDE service ports. So if you're working with a system like this one, which either has not enough IDE or sometimes they only came with one IDE on the board, this was a method of expansion. So not only did you get the sound card capabilities from your Sound Blaster, but you could add your IDE over here and add a second hard drive or CD drive, another floppy drive, whatever your system particularly needed. And it was a great way of managing cables because, as with most boards, all of the standard IDEs would all be kind of packed together, sometimes in a very inconvenient location. So cable management was, frankly, quite tough back in the day. Some riser cards had expansion on the backside, so you'd actually have IDEs plugging into your top of your expansion, and you'd keep everything kind of compacted right in one spot, which was frustrating because you'd have sometimes your ventilation, and then things would get hot, and I think that's how a lot of systems might have failed back in the day. But another thing I wanted to point out is I am taking all of the ribbon cables out here, and I'm going to clean each one. And this is kind of an optional thing, but they're going to have dust cling to them. They're going to be dirty. A lot of people don't clean cords because, you don't notice that much. But if you look at like these power cables, for instance, this copper wire here has just got the dust just clinging to it. So I'm not going to be able to get all of that, but I'm definitely going to brush it off with my air gun and 100% going to try and wipe it down with a little Windex and IPA just to get things as clean as possible. But the biggest cleaning project for sure has got to be this board, particularly this 387 slot here, which I would actually, or excuse me, 487 slot here, which I would actually like to get an upgrade CPU for this. I've been chasing them down for a while because I have a couple of systems that can use these, whether it's the 487 or the 387, and I'd just be thrilled to find one to just play around and see what it does. Because back in the day, I never had one. I've never seen one in action. So if you know something about these math coprocessors or these upgrade CPUs that helped kind of manage the systems back in the day, how much advantage do they give? Drop me some comments. Let me know. Educate me because, I am a hobbyist. I am not an electrical engineer. I build computers for fun and, for my YouTube channels and working on them. But really, honestly, I'm in the dark and just as much a fan as the retro community people who watch my videos are. So the more we can learn from each other, the more we can recycle, the better. That's my stance, and I am always happy to learn. All right, another thing to be cognizant of if you're a hobbyist like me and you're taking apart computers and you didn't grow up in the era where you had to remember where the orange wire goes, do yourself a favor when you're taking these apart, take a picture so you remember what the sequence is. A lot of the time these are numbered, and typically one comes after two. If you're looking at it like this, the other side, one and then two. It's easy to mix up, and they're not keyed like your 24-pin connectors, so you can fry your system this way. Now, I know there's a trick to doing this, and there's a logic to it. I learned it in my computer construction class way back in high school. I apologize to Mr. Smith. I do not remember what that was because the times they have changed, and you just don't see these anymore. But the cool thing about them is the systems that they run do a lot of the things that, frankly, emulation just does not compare to the real thing. All right, so I've got the light on here so you can really see kind of the true depth of fuzz and crap built up over the years on this board. It's pretty gnarly. You can see the VGA BIOS there. Really just caked. Our 486 there looks like a 25 megahertz. You can finally see the lettering on that. One interesting thing I noticed here is up on this MP224 chip, this has had some repair in the past. And they've tied in, I believe that's our number 3 pin to this little cell pack over here. So this has had a board repair at one point or another in its life. Not really clear to me why, but it may explain why, the caps are in good shape, is I'm wondering if somebody has gone through this at some point in its life and restored the caps. Could be, at least some of them. Although I don't think there's any necessarily other indicators of repair on here. But interesting, if anybody knows what this repair may be for, what the reasoning was, I'd be very, very interested to know. One thing I am not good at is this type of board repair. I'm trying to learn, but I'm not not adept at it yet. The other thing is it's got plastic risers for this modem. Now, I'm really hoping I can squeeze these and not break them because I really don't have any other way to remount this modem. It's not the end of the world if I can't. Obviously, I'm not going to be using this modem for anything, but just for aesthetics, I do try, where possible, to preserve the appearance of the system. When I'm trying to do like restoration work on these retro systems, part of the allure for me, and retro fans out there probably will agree in some respects to this, unless I'm planning on modifying a system, I try to keep it as original as I can, just for the sake of, there's just not many of these left. And the more of them that are purely original, the better. Now, obviously, adding drives and things, converted hard drives, I mean, that's somewhat of a necessity. But the more I can keep things, kind of as they were, the better. The other thing I noticed is we've got a lot of empty sockets on this board. So I'd be interested to know, I'm assuming this is video RAM expansion sockets. I'll have to kind of look into that a little closer, but this is the VGA circuit, so I assume that's probably the case. It is that Oak Technology VGA controller. And then over here is our static RAM cache banks. So we've got odd and even cache. So I assume you can update the cache memory on this board. But then there's some other open sockets here that are listed as additional RAM spots, and I'm not honestly really sure. I've never seen a board quite configured like this, so if anybody has any light they can shed on that, I would be very interested to know. Likewise, if these chips are available, I'd love to beef this board up to a max capability. I'll have to do a little research to figure out what the max capability is, but we've got a full RAM bank for the DRAM, so I'd be interested to know what the full capacity is. I saw it when it ran the BIOS boot, but it'd be interesting to know if we can get RAM sticks to get this to whatever this board's maximum capacity is, if it's not already there. So now that we have a little more information on the board, I should be able to research it. But if anybody out there wants to drop a comment, or if they know where I can purchase these chips, drop me a link. I'd love to, kind of optimize this system. I do plan on using it from time to time, not just for the channel, but for my own enjoyment. I see we've got a lot of jumper settings, so there's probably a lot of manipulation that this board would need to optimize it. I do know you have to adjust a jumper to engage the upgrade CPU. So hit me up in the comments. If you know more about this than I do, I, again, always love to hear about it because I'm just terribly fascinated. Okay, so we got the modem out. This is a Rockwell. I believe this is a 2400 baud modem. It's an SM24P. I have to probably look it up, but this is definitely probably not in the era of 56K. I'm going to guess it's, at most maybe a 14.4, but it's a line in, line out system. And the model number here is a PB2400DB. So I'm guessing 2400 baud, but honestly, I'm not a modem expert, and it really doesn't matter because I'm probably not going to be using it ever. But I did not break any of the plastic risers, which I'm pretty thrilled about. And it looks like our nickel cadmium battery here is a 3.6 volt, 50 milliamp. And that's good. It's good to see it's in good condition, no leakage. Capacitors next to it all look good, just dusty and dirty. And we've got Phoenix BIOS on the board. So that's cool. Covered in dust, but it's nice that they have these stickers on the board. So next up, we are going to pull this power supply out because I want to give that a very thorough cleaning. The last thing I need is this power supply to now fail, and then I have no way to power this up. But the good news is, just to demonstrate here, so our issue that started this off with was the button didn't seem to articulate the power correctly, but it looks like it may just be that fascia button. And with a good cleaning, I have a feeling this is going to work just fine. All right, so we've got our DVE 150 watt power supply out of the case. And yeah, as you can see, this thing's caked on the inside. That's probably going to be our primary focus for cleaning first. We can get a good look in here beneath our drives. We can see that the arm itself now pulls free. We're going to give that a nice clean up too. And you can also see that part of the board, which is normally obscured by the drives here, has that cool Packard Bell logo. And it looks like our capacitors here all look in good shape as well. And they all look to be, fairly easy to replace if we ever needed to. I did get a nice close look at the battery from the other side here. That also looks to be in good shape. So very happy to see that. Jumper settings. I don't know, I mentioned my computer construction class earlier. One of the things our fun little teachers would do is they would come through on the machines we were building, many of them Pentium systems, but a couple were 486. A lot of them did have some sort of jumper setting we had to be cognizant of. And one of the challenges every day in class they like to throw at us is moving jumpers out of place or just pulling them out. And then we had to find and troubleshoot. So thank you all for that, because now I know to double check everything. I don't think I'll be doing anything so rigorous that I'll have to worry about messing up a jumper, but if I do optimize the system, may have to adjust those settings. Again, this repair on the board, I'm not really clear on why that might have been needed, whatever time it was, but I assume there was a voltage issue that they needed to bridge, and they did it, and it looks like they did a really nice job running a wire trace. So we'll start by getting the board out, and then we'll clean the case, we'll clean the power supply, we'll clean the board, and then we'll start reassembly at that point. Now, I'm not going to write any components. It's been really rainy here, and I have not yet rigged up a good retrobrighting for inside. So that I'm also not really concerned about, because this one wasn't too badly yellowed, and frankly, sometimes having a little yellow on the system is, it's kind of nice to see, brings those nostalgic feelings of how plastics used to be back in the day. Okay, so we're about ready to take this board out. Another tip with these old front panels, just make sure you're taking a picture of how this is arranged as well. It's a little harder to screw anything up by misplacing them, but it'll save you some time. This also has a neat little electronic lock on the front that connects to J11 and J19 on the board. I don't know that I've ever actually seen that before, so apparently this had some kind of a locking system to it for whatever reason. Again, haven't really dived into what might be on this hard drive, but maybe it was necessary to lock this for whatever reason, or maybe that was just a neat feature that Packard Bell wanted to offer. Don't know. All right, we are down to a bare case, dust bunnies, and of course our little front things we're not going to bother pulling out. But look at these standoffs. They're huge. I mean, I've seen plenty of standoffs before, but wow. Pretty large. I will say it was remarkable how clean the bottom of the board was, except of course in the airflow area up front. And then at the back here where you can see it's just caked in dust and sand and who knows what else over the years. But really pretty clean. I really like the aesthetic design here. You can see that this is actually meant to have a modem here. I didn't notice this before, but just lightly engraved on the back, there are all the indicators. So you have your printer, looks like, I'm not really sure what that's for. It's parallel of some kind. Joystick, monitor, mouse, keyboard, really kind of neat. I don't know why, but I'm always very impressed when I see old things like this back in the day. I will say what clues me into that this has been serviced in the past is that there was probably an original sticker here, and this is a replacement sticker. Why that may be, I don't know. Other than that one wire trace repair, I did not see anything else that's ever been manipulated in this case or this board, so that's good. Whatever issue it had must have been fairly simple and was an easy fix. So next step, we'll go ahead and blast this out, and then we'll get to cleaning components in the next video when we reassemble.